we will be discussing the optional public administration, and we will be talking about what should be your optional about, what should be your expectations related to this optional, what is the syllabus of this optional, and along with this, one of the basic idea that I will be talking about is what is the strategy to prepare this very optional. Okay? Because the see that every optional has separate demands, and that is the reason why not every optional can be considered as relevant for everyone. And that because of that, what you have to understand is that whenever we talk about what optionals you should be choosing, so you have to see what is the demand of a particular optional and accordingly decide whether you can somehow address to that demands or not. Every optional is different. Every optional, to score well in that optional, you do require some very specific, capabilities. There are some very specific capabilities which are required. So in today's discussion, we will be talking about these factors. We will be discussing, first of all, one of the most important mistakes that is generally made by aspirants is that you tend to decide optionals on some irrational grounds. That means whenever you are choosing an optional, generally what you do is you do not choose an optional by making a rational decision that, okay, this is the optional, this is the syllabus of the optional, this is the demand of the optional, and therefore I am taking this or I'm choosing it. No. What happens is most of the times your decisions are based on some irrational parameters. And by irrational parameters, I mean sometimes you take this decision on the basis of this ground that's because someone has advised you to take this optional. So you choose that optional. Most of the times the decision is based on this, that because this optional was the optional of the last year's topper, so I will take that optional. है ना? These things are not right. This is not the right way to decide how you should be choosing your optional. Okay? And what you have to understand is that this is the only decision that you make when it comes to your UPSC preparations or your civil services preparation. This is the only decision that you take, because everything else is a part of compulsory. Whether it is your general studies, whether it is your essay paper, whether it is your interviews, all of it is a part of compulsory. There is no choice that you have. It is only one choice that you have is with respect to choosing your optional. So we have to be very careful and we have to make a very rational decision. It's not about whether you choose public administration or not. It is more about whether you have taken an appropriate and rational decision or not. That is the first thing. And yes, obviously, I will be giving you an insight related to public administration as an optional, and whether you can choose that optional or not. What should be the considerations? I will be talking about that as well. But the first thing that we have to understand here, the very first objective, the very first objective that I have is to give you an insight as to what should be the basic reasons for choosing an optional. That is something which is very important. And believe me, choosing an optional is such an important thing, because if you make a wrong decision related to your optional, it is going to cost you your preparation. It is going to cost you your preparation. And if you don't believe this, I will give you my example. So I'm talking about the year 2010. So I started attempting this examination in 2008. So the year that I started preparing for this was 2008. Okay. In 2008, when I had to decide which optional I should be going for, I took the decision based on the same thing that I have advised you not to do. I chose two optionals because at that time we had to, that was the time when we had two optionals, not one, we had two optionals. So I had to make this decision of choosing two optionals. So one decision was public administration, that I went for public administration as an optional. That was one optional that I chose. The second optional that I chose was psychology. So psychology was my second optional. And if you ask me what was my ground, why did I choose these two optionals? I have no answer even till today. I have no answer because my ground for choosing the optional was just because everyone said that this is the optional that you should go for. So whenever I used to ask anyone about, or optionals, because, uh, my graduation, my bachelor's degree, I completed my bachelor's degree in 2007. So I was thinking about starting preparation in 2007, but I did not do it in 2007. I started in 2008. So when in 2007, because, a lot of my seniors, they were either preparing or they were in service. So whenever I used to ask them that, which optional do you think I should be going for? So they said, see, if you want to choose an optional, the best optional as of now is these two optionals. So you can go for that. And I accordingly took their decision and I chose this optional. Okay. So in 2010, I'm writing my mains examination. I've completed my mains examination. I get a call for interviews also. I go for interviews. That was my best attempt. 2010 was my best attempt. That means, I think from mid of 2008 till 2010, the whole of 2010, that means till the time I wrote my mains examination, I did not even take one day off, I think. This was this around this 14 to 18 month period that was there. That was the best preparation that I did. And I gave it my all because I had that feeling that this is the year. This is the year where I am going to get through. Because I appeared in interviews in 2009 also. So 2009 also I gave my interviews. 2010 also I gave my interviews. And when I say 2009, I mean because 2009 the examination started, interview was in 2010. 2010 examination started, interview was in 2011. So this was the time when 2009, when I was giving my mains examination in 2009, I was not very confident. I felt, okay, I'm prepared, but not that kind of preparation which, that self-confidence that was there, is bar ho hi jayega. That kind of confidence was not there in 2009. But I cracked mains examination. I went for interviews also. I went for interviews also during that very examination as well. But I knew that I had to work some loopholes is still there. I have to plug that loophole to crack this examination. So in 2009, when final results were declared and I did not get into the list, I was not that demotivated. I knew that there is only some distance, very very small distance is there, which I will be able to plug this time. So in 2010, when I was appearing for my prelims, I knew I will crack prelims. And we had, after prelims, we had to have, at that time, we used to get a lot of gap. So the prelims examination used to be held in last Sunday of May. Last Sunday of May was the prelims examination. And from there, we used to get till the month of late October, November. So this was the time when mains examination was held. So this gave us a lot of time to prepare for mains and all of it. And No, I knew from, in my mains examination, when before even I appeared for my mains examination, I knew that mera ho jayega. This year I knew that I'm going to get into services because I had prepared to that particular extent. I've, whatever was required, I had done that. I had done everything. I used to score very good marks in my, test series whenever I was appearing for that, and all of it, everything was in the right place. Clear? But somehow, psychology, which was my second optional, was not my strong point. Not like, no, public administration. I used to score very well, no, very good marks in public administration, but not that much in psychology. So even in my 2009 attempt, uh, I got 272 in psychology, which was not very good. It was good enough to get you into, good to get you into interviews, but not good enough to get into services. So I knew that this is the only place where something could go wrong. So when I was giving my 2010 attempts, in mains examination, I did everything what I could, and I wrote my mains examination. I got an interview call also. I went for the interviews, but somehow I felt that yes, this year I'm going to get through. When the results were declared, my name was not there in the list. And believe me, for the next 1 year, not just the next year, not just 1 year, but 2 3 years after that, I did not have the courage to face this examination. Forget about, you know appearing and rectifying mistakes. Forget about that. I did not have the courage to pick up my books and actually study for this examination because of the kind of, the kind of energy and the kind of, no, the kind of जो hard work जो मैंने किया था. So at that time, when results were declared, when the mark sheet came, that is how much I scored in my mains examination, interviews, etc. When the mark sheet came, I scored only 30 marks in psychology paper 2 out of 300. I scored only 30 marks in psychology paper 2 out of 300. And I fell short by 14 marks. That means to get into the list, I required 14 marks. And I scored only 30 marks in paper 2, which meant that if I would have scored 50, which is not even 20% of, because at that time it used to be 300 marks. If I scored only 50, I would have got into the list. I would have got service. And if I had scored, around 150, which was good enough, very likely I would have, scored very likely in the top 100. And that is the time when I knew that the mistake that I made was related to choosing my optionals. It was not related to the preparation I did or the hard work that was there, nothing like that. The problem was what? The problem was with respect to the, no, it was with respect to the optional that I had chosen. And by that time when I wanted to, I wanted to, okay, that let me change my option, I did not have the energy left to actually go for any other optional or prepare for this examination again with the same kind of, the same kind of motivation, the same kind of energy. That was not left. And this is the reason why, since I started this journey, that means since the time I started, mentoring students, I always advise everyone to choose their optionals very carefully. Because what your optionals are, one wrong choice of optional is going to cost you this preparation. Remember this. And that is the reason why never choose an optional based on what others are saying, how others are scoring on that. That is not the way you choose your optionals. That's not the way you choose your optionals. Remember this. And that is the reason why, we have to be very careful, and we have to understand the logic behind my decision. What is the logic behind my decision? If I'm choosing, maybe even if you go for public administration, if you go for any other optional, in that case, when you're choosing that optional, what is the logic behind it? Are you taking a rational decision, or are you taking a decision just for the sake of choosing an optional because someone has told you to do that? No one is a better judge of your own capabilities except you. So what what your capabilities are, and accordingly you can make a choice. That is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to tell you, because see, I don't know the requirements of other optionals, but I know what is the requirement of this optional, which is public administration. So I am going to tell you what public administration is about, and what are the specific things that you have to be, what are the specific things that you have to be careful when you're choosing public administration. Or if you're choosing public administration, should you even choose public administration? That is what I can inform you about, and that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you about what what is the basic criterias for choosing this very optional. Okay. So remember this. Always remember, whenever you are making a choice of optionals, your first thing that should come to your mind is my story. That one wrong choice will cost you your preparation. And sometimes you will wonder that हम बोलते हैं ना कि there is something called as destiny. Remember, the destiny that we talk about and we give importance to, that is not, it's just the consequence of the decisions that you make, nothing else. Your destiny is the consequence of your own decisions. It's not because of because of what is written or something like that. No, your destiny is the consequence of your own decisions. What you do in life is dependent upon your decisions. Clear? So even choosing an optional should be something which should be your decision. So even when when you are going to succeed, the day you succeed, you should know that the first step of that success, of that day that you succeeded, was actually taken on the day when you decided to choose the right optional. Remember that. Okay. So see, the very first thing is that when it comes to public administration is an optional which has some very basic benefits. If you go for public administration, there are some very basic benefits that are there. Like, public administration is a optional which almost suffices your paper 2. That is general studies paper 2. Because general studies paper 2 comprises of 3 important components. It is polity, governance, and international relations. There is social justice also, but social justice, in terms of the number of questions that are asked, it to a certain extent overlaps with the governance part as well. Okay. So at least if you leave aside the international relations part, the polity and governance part is covered in your public administration. Okay. So if you ask me what is the benefits that are there and how will choosing public administration help you, so choosing public administration will help you in your general studies as well. It helps you in your general studies as well, because one part of public administration, which is your which is your polity and which is public administration paper 2, overlaps with general studies paper 2, which is polity and governance. Okay. So it overlaps. So if you have studied it as a part of public administration, or if you have studied it as part of general studies paper 2, then you will find that okay, a lot of things overlap, and the kind of effort that you have to make to actually go through them, go through those topics, that is not something that is, no, that kind of effort is not required. So as it is, completing the whole of general studies paper is a very, very hectic job. So if you have some overlap between general studies and your general, no, your optional, what it does is, to a certain extent, it decreases your burden. So that is one positive that is there, which is something which is prominently seen here. Okay. But the extent of public administration is not just limited to, extent of it is not just limited to only and only this part. If you look at the ethics part of your syllabus, that is general studies paper 4. So in general studies paper 4, you will find that there are direct correlations with public administration, because there are topics like ethics in public administration. There are topics like, probity in governance. These topics directly overlap with public administration paper. And secondly, even when you're writing your case studies, in your ethics paper, because you have studied public administration, so what happens is you have a good knowledge of how to approach administratively, how to approach a case study. That means if you are being asked a question as to how a civil servant should react in that situation, what should be the course of action that should be taken. So our knowledge of administration, because we have gained that knowledge by studying public administration, no, that knowledge that is there, that helps us in understanding that there are certain things that cannot be, and should not be recommended, that I'm going to do this, that should not be done, and therefore I will not do it. So even approaching your case studies in ethics paper, how you approach your case studies in ethics paper is something which is very much, it is something which is very much influenced by public administration, if you accordingly address it. Okay. So when it comes to your general studies paper, there is an overlap. Public administration gives you an overlap that is there, and there are some other overlaps as well. Like in general studies paper 3, you have a topic called disaster management. In public administration paper 2 also you have a topic called disaster management. In general studies paper 3, you have a topic called as internal security. And in public administration paper 2, you have a topic called as law and order. So there is some overlap that is present there as well. And that is the reason why I feel, that is my personal opinion, it is not something which will be necessarily applicable to all of you, but my personal opinion is that public administration as an optional gives us good insight also related to other aspects of general studies paper 2, paper 4, as well as paper 3 part. And that is the reason why I consider this optional, if it is, if it is something which you can, which is a part of your, strong points, it is a paper which becomes very suitable to all of you. Provided there are some conditions, obviously I will be talking about them. If you meet those conditions, then you can go for this. Okay. So remember this part. What have I said till now? First thing that I've said is that whenever you are choosing an optional, it should be based on some rational ideas, not irrationally. Secondly, the second thing that I've talked about is about public administration and about this optional. And as I said, that this optional that is there, it has some, it has some very positive correlation with general studies paper, and a lot of topics that is there in paper 2, paper 4, as well as some topics in paper 3, it overlaps with your public administration paper. So it helps you in that context as well. It helps you in that context, it helps you in that understanding as well. Okay. So these two parts is what we have covered till now. Now, coming to, first of all, what exactly is the paper about? Clear? So when you think of public administration as an optional or as an activity, what is the thing that comes to your mind? When देखो अगर आपने सोचा है कि पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन एक ऐसा ऑप्शनल है जिसको आप चूज कर सकते हो, इफ यू हैव थॉट इन दैट मैनर, तो आपने ये जरूर सोचा होगा कि हाउ इज दिस ऑप्शनल अबाउट, व्हाट इज दिस ऑप्शनल अबाउट, यू मस्ट हैव थॉट अबाउट दिस. So in that context, one question that I will definitely ask you is, when you think about public administration, what comes to your mind? What are you actually going to read about in this optional? Management of public organizations. Yes. Anything, anyone else? Yes. Management of law and order. Okay. Anything else? Anyone with any other idea? Decision making. Okay. Okay, let me just simplify this for you. How many of you think that public administration optional is no, it is about reading of government organizations and how they function? मैं ये पूछ रहा हूं आपसे कि आप में से कितने लोगों को ये लगता है कि पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन इज अबाउट रीडिंग गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, which organizations are there and how does these organization function? आप में से कितने लोगों को ऐसा लगता है? Some of you do feel about that, that it is about what? Reading of government organization. Because what in my experience what I've seen is that this is what generally aspirants think before they choose this optional, that it is about what? There are some government offices like the office of district collector, like the office of, as he said, law and order. So the office of superintendent of police, how they functions. This is what public administration is. This is only partially true. ये half truth है. This is the half truth. That means when we say that it's about management of public organizations, this is half truth. ये सही नहीं है. हाँ, by maintaining law and order to ensure administration of the country. Again, half truth. This is not exactly what the content of public administration is. इसीलिए हमें ये जानना जरूरी है कि exactly what is the content of public administration. Without knowing this, you are making the ultimate mistake of your preparation when you choose an optional without knowing its true content. In fact, reading about government organizations is not even 50% of the, no, it is not even 50% of your optional, at least this public administration optional, it's not. If you think you are going to read about government organizations, yes, some of the government organizations you are going to read about, but that will not be even 50% of the content of this syllabus. Very likely maximum you can say 20 to 30%, not more than that. So whenever we talk about this optional public administration, obviously you have two papers like any other optional, paper 1 and paper 2. I'm not very, no, I don't know about other other optionals, but in public administration, if you know paper 1 well, if you know paper 1 well, it is 80% of your job done. This is 80% of your job. It is 80% of your job. And why am I saying this? It is 80% of your job for two reasons. Paper 1 is conceptual by nature. This is conceptual. This paper is conceptual. That means what are the concepts that are there? What are the theories that are there? All of it is a part of this particular paper, paper 1, not paper 2. And mostly, you will see that in paper 2, there is only 10% of the topics which are conceptual. Only 10% of the topics are conceptual. That is where you have to understand. Where you have to understand what theories are, or what, how the administration functions, the conceptual part of it. Only 10%. Paper 1, on the other hand, 80% of the ideas that are there, it is conceptual. So in this paper, what happens is that if you are able to use this paper 1, the part of paper 1 in writing of your paper 2 answers, you will score very well. So I'm repeating this. I don't know about other optionals, but in public administration, when we are preparing for it, the emphasis on paper 1 is considerably more than the emphasis on paper 2. If we suppose we are taking 4.5 months to complete this optional, out of 4.5 months, very likely 3 months time we are dedicating only to our paper 1. And for our paper 2, we have around 1.5 months, which is approximately 50 days we would dedicate to paper 2. There is an imbalance that is there, but this is how it is. The importance of paper 1 is much more. In public administration, again I'm saying in public administration, not in non-optionals. In public administration, the importance of paper 1 is much more. And paper 1 is management. Paper 1 is management. That means paper 1 of public administration, the content that is there, we are not reading how the government organization functions. We don't read that. What we actually discuss here is how an organization functions. How an organization functions. What are the important aspects of the organization? What are those aspects of the organization which would require some changes in order to do what? In order to bring about, in order to bring about efficiency in the organization. It actually overlaps with management. It overlaps with management. So unlike what the general understanding is, this is the reason why I asked you this question. When you look at public administration, what do you think is the content? And as you said that it is about, it's about government organizations and all of this. My answer to that is no, not exactly. Because if you look at, and that is what I'm going to do next, I will explain this to you, how paper 1 is about management. But it is actually management. And all the theorists that we are going to read about, all the theories that we are going to read about in paper 1, it has all been taken up from management. It is not public administration, it is management. And that is the reason why the first thing that you should be absolutely clear with is that what we generally think of, जो हमें ऐसा लगता है generally जब हम public administration as an optional देखते हैं, तो हमें ऐसा लगता है कि public administration is about reading of government offices. है वो, लेकिन वो paper 2 का part है. And that is only 20% of your syllabus. Mostly, the most important part of your syllabus is a part of paper 1. And in paper 1, you don't read those things. You read primarily management. Management is what you are basically reading here. So this is one thing that you have to be very clear of. ठीक है? देखो, let me just substantiate this idea. We are talking about paper 1. Look at what public administration paper 1 is called administrative theories. Paper 1 is called theories. It is coming to paper 2. Paper 2 is Indian administration. Paper 1 is administrative theories. So here what happens is that when you don't understand this requirement, most of the times when you come to the class, you yourself are not clear as to what I am going to read in the class. Padna kya hai? And when you come to the class with different conceptualizations like reading about government offices, okay? So then you start, most of the times you get disappointed कि अच्छा ये तो मैंने नहीं सोचा था, this is something else, है ना? Just going back a few days, I started a new batch. It was basically being taken up, and when I started the classes, after around 10 classes, there was a student who said, "Sir, district collector के बारे में कब पढ़ेंगे?" In the class, when would we read about that particular office? The problem is that we are going to read about it, but I am not going to give you more than 1 hour on that office. 1 घंटे से ज़्यादा हम नहीं पढ़ेंगे. तो जहाँ पर हमारी क्लासेस 300 घंटे की होती है, हम पढ़ते और डिस्ट्रिक्ट कलेक्टर के बारे में सिर्फ 1 घंटे हैं. Because that is what is required. That is what is required. We do read about the law and order part, but we maximum 2 or 3 days where I talk about, police hierarchy, police reforms, different, committee commissions, what are the reforms that are required, 2-3 days. So if you do not have a clear understanding as to what the optional is about, you are not mentally prepared. फिर वही बात है कि someone has actually told you to go for this optional, है ना? Because public administration is that optional जिसमें सबको ये लगता है कि कोई ऑप्शनल नहीं पसंद आ रहा है तो चलो ये ले लेते हैं, बिकॉज यही ऑप्शनल सबसे सूटेबल होगा. दैट इज जनरली हाउ पीपल conclude that okay, this is my optional, this is what I'm going to. That's fine, there is no problem with that idea. The problem is that you should be very, very clear as to what is the content of this very optional. Clear? So if we look at the paper, look at the introduction topic. What is the introduction topic? It obviously meaning, scope of public administration, importance of it, and all of it. And after that, see Wilson's vision, evolution and present status, new public administration, public choice, challenges of LPG, good governance, new public management. You know what this is all about? This is how public administration has started as a discipline in 1887. You see this individual's name, Wilson. So Woodrow Wilson, he was the one who laid the foundations of public administration in an essay that he wrote in 1887. And from 1887 till contemporary times, that is, we are talking about 1970s and even till this century, that is the 20th century, how public administration has evolved. And by public administration, I mean how American public administration has evolved. What has happened in public administration in America is basically what we study in introduction. It is nothing, we don't study about India here. We study about America. Why? Because public administration as a discipline did not start in India. It was something which started in America, and how it has evolved in America is what we study here. Though the scholar who for the very first time has talked about public administration is definitely an Indian scholar, obviously Kautilya. So Kautilya has talked about it, but the thing is that Kautilya did not transform into that is public administration into a systematic study. He did not evolve it as a discipline. And the discipline of public administration starts in 1887 when Woodrow Wilson wrote an essay, and from there we see the origin of public administration and how there were certain things like new public administration happened, public choice approach, and obviously you will not understand these things as of now, but you can understand the contemporary ideas. Like if you look at this, challenges of LPG. So what is this challenges of LPG? It is something which is a very new concept, which means 1970s, 80s, that is the time when LPG as an idea has started evolving. Good governance. 1990s, the concept of good governance has emerged in the 1990s, and accordingly it has evolved. Clear? So introduction topic that is there, introduction topic is about tracing the evolution of the discipline and what are the specific, no, what are the specific concepts that have come up here and how it has emerged. This is what introduction topic is. This topic is conceptual, purely conceptual, and approximately you get questions anywhere between 45 to 50 marks in paper 1 from introduction topic. So why did I say 80%? Abhi aapko samajh mein aa jayega. So if you see your PYQs, obviously this year, the examination is not yet, it has not yet happened. But when I get the PYQs, I know what will be asked. Approximately somewhere around 45 marks question would be asked from the introduction topic. That is, these things that were there, it would be asked for 45 marks. Clear? Now, the second part is what? Administrative thought. What is this? Theories. Thinkers and theories that are there. This is very interesting part of public administration. And as I said, paper 1 is what? Management. It is not administration, it is management. All these thinkers that you read here, all these thinkers that are there, they are all management thinkers. Whether it is Taylor, who gives the scientific management movement, or for that matter, whether it is the participative management, the most evolved school given by Rensis Likert and all of them. What is it? It is all management. How an organization functions. Classical theories, they say according to the classical theories, in an organization, the most important thing that is there is the structure, the design of the organization, the procedures that are followed. The neoclassical thinkers, they say no, it's about behavior and human beings, how human beings behave in the organization. That is what it is. And this is basically what we study here. The most interesting and the most important part of your whole syllabus is this topic, that is the thinkers topic. Directly, you might get around 30 to 40 marks question directly. But indirectly, if you add paper 1 and paper 2 here, you are going to, in different questions, refer to thinkers in almost every question. Almost every question. So you would be writing, आपको पता है कितने आंसर्स आप लिखते हो ऑप्शनल में? How many questions do you answer in your optional paper? Huh? First and fifth question is compulsory. Part 1, part 2, first and fifth is compulsory. How many questions are there in question 1 and question 5? 5. 5 questions, 10 mark each, which means question number 1 and question number 5 is 10 questions. Clear? And then for the remaining, you have to answer 3, and every question has 3 subcomponents, which means 9 questions. 10 plus 9. That means you are in your optional, you are answering 19 questions. And out of those 19 questions, that means if you include paper 2, it is 38. So out of the 38 questions that you would be writing in your public administration paper, out of that 38 questions, including paper 1 and paper 2, at least in 30 of those questions, if not more, in 30 of those questions, you will be using this topic. You will be using this topic. This is such an important topic. And this is such an important part of our discussion that the first month of our preparation, when we start, we actually complete only these two topics. Somewhere around 35 classes is required in order to complete introduction and the thinkers part. You know why? Because directly speaking, we are answering almost 90 marks question from this topic directly, and indirectly speaking, we are answering almost out of 500, at least we are in 400 of the marks that is there. We are referring to what? We are referring to theories as well as the introduction topic. That is the reason why this is the most important part. There is a pattern. You know, when we take up public administration, we don't read it in a haphazard manner. We don't read it in a manner that it is mentioned in your syllabus. Paper, no, unit 1, unit 2, and so on. No, there is a pattern that we need to study so that we can better understand this. Pattern kya hai? First, topic 1 and topic 2. That is the pattern. Then what we do? We come to the topics. What are those? Comparative public administration and development dynamics. Comparative public administration development dynamics is what? Comparative public administration is a school, a sub-school, a sub-discipline which has emerged in public administration, which says that administrative structures in all countries should undergo comparative analysis. यानी अगर इंडिया में कुछ हो रहा है और यूएस में कुछ चल रहा है, तो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन इंडिया में उसको कैसे हैंडल कर रहा है और यूएस में उसे कैसे हैंडल किया जा रहा है, उन दोनों को कंपैरिजन जरूरी है. कंपैरिजन क्यों जरूरी होता है? आप टुडे वाज योर पॉलिटी टेस्ट, है ना? Most of you appeared for that test. Now when you appear for the test and you see your score and you see the score of others, है ना? If you see that you are scoring better than others, or if you see that there are some people in the class who are scoring more than you, what will this knowledge help you for? किस चीज के लिए जरूरत है? इस कंपैरिजन की जरूरत क्यों है हमें? यस, एग्जैक्टली, फॉर इंप्रूवमेंट. हमें ये पता होगा कि हम क्या सही कर रहे हैं और क्या गलत कर रहे हैं. कंपैरेटिव पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन इज जस्ट दैट, अंडरस्टैंडिंग administration and of different countries, comparing it to your administration in order to understand what the administrative structure of one country is doing correctly and what the administrative structure is not doing correctly. That is basically what comparative public administration is. And here there is one very important thinker called as F.W. Riggs. This model that is there, we primarily base our discussion on this very model. Clear? Every year you get question, at least 30 marks question worth from this very topic itself. Riggs, minimum 20, maximum 30 you get from Riggs itself. It is predictable and it is asked almost every year in the same pattern. Clear? So this is there. Then comes your topic, development dynamics. Development dynamics is what? It is about development. What is the meaning of development? What are the theories and models of development as of that is going on as of today? What was development in the 1950s? Is that definition of development relevant today? Yes or no? No. 1950s development was about what? Development was about economic growth. Economic growth was considered development. Today that's not the case. Today it's not about that. Today it is about sustainable development. Today it is about, as you can see, UN says sustainable development goals. Today we talk about gender and the importance of what? Importance of ensuring women benefit out of development. So gender development is a idea. You must have heard about Human Development Index. These are the new parameters of development. We study about them in development dynamics. And we also study about what? We also study about एंटी डेवलपमेंट थीसिस। तो कुछ ऐसे स्कॉलर्स हैं, देखो आज के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में कितना रेलेवेंट है ये बात, ये समझ जाओगे। इंडिया इज फेसिंग टुडे व्हाट? इंडिया ग्लोबली स्पीकिंग, इंडिया को यूएस टारगेट कर रहा है, ट्रेड वॉर्स, एंड इंडिया इज बीइंग प्रेशराइज्ड, इंडिया इज बीइंग प्रेशराइज्ड, है ना, प्रेशर टैक्टिक्स है ना, सैंक्शंस लगाना या टैरिफ्स लगाना, ये क्या है? प्रेशर टैक्टिक्स है। दिस इज व्हाट एंटी डेवलपमेंट थीसिस सेज, कि ये जो डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज है ना, इनका अपना डेफिनेशन है डेवलपमेंट का, और अगर हम इनके हिसाब से चलते हैं कि जो इनके डेफिनेशंस और इनके जो पैरामीटर्स हैं, तो इससे हमारा बुरा होगा, अच्छा नहीं होगा। वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू डेवलप, एटलीस्ट देयर विल बी नो ऑथेंटिक डेवलपमेंट दैट विल हैपन इन डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज और अंडर डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज। ऑथेंटिक डेवलपमेंट नहीं होगा। सो दे क्रिटिसाइज द होल कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ डेवलपमेंट, दे क्रिटिसाइज द होल कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ डेवलपमेंट। एक स्टेटमेंट है इनका। Now, one of the scholars of anti-development thesis says what, we should be worried about not the failure of but success of development। वो ये कह रहा है कि हमें इस बात को लेकर चिंतित होना है, इस बात को लेकर परेशान होना है कि डेवलपमेंट फेल हो रहा है, इससे हमें कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ना चाहिए। डेवलपमेंट सक्सीड हो रहा है, दैट इज द प्रॉब्लम। Because when development succeeds, the problem would be what? When development succeeds, the problem would be that we are likely to, developing countries, underdeveloped countries are not going to benefit out of it। ठीक है, देखो हम इंडिया में जो भी चीजें हो रही हैं, हमने अपना इंडस्ट्री बैठाया, हमने सारी चीजें की, एंड वी स्टार्टेड ट्रेडिंग विद द वेस्ट। आज वेस्ट कह रहा है कि आपके ऊपर ट्रेड सैंक्शन, आपके ऊपर सैंक्शंस लगाए जाएंगे, टैरिफ्स लगाए जाएंगे। तो हमें क्या बेनिफिट हुआ? हमें तो बेनिफिट नहीं हुआ। इनफैक्ट अगर आज उन टैरिफ्स की वजह से इंडिया में बिजनेसेस जो है बंद होती हैं, लोगों नो पीपल गो अनएम्प्लॉयड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट, तो नेगेटिव तो वहां हुआ ना। दिस इज व्हाट एंटी डेवलपमेंट थीसिस सेज। So they are very critical about the process of development, and obviously we read about institutions like women and self-help groups and how they impact। ये टॉपिक होता है जो हम यहाँ पर टेकअप करते हैं। ठीक है, उसके बाद देखो, जैसा मैंने आपको बताया था कि there is a correlation between governance part and polity part as well as your public administration। Look at this topic, accountability and control. See the content of it. Concept of accountability and control, legislative, executive and judicial control over administration, citizen and administration, role of media, interest group, voluntary organization, civil society, citizens charter, right to information, social audit। Is it not the same syllabus of governance? It is exactly the same syllabus of governance। So this part is basically related to your polity and governance part, where we basically take up our discussion on, like this year also, yesterday if you have seen the question, there was a question asked on civil society, there was a question asked on environmental interest groups, there was a question asked on environmental interest groups। What is it? This part। Now what are we basically studying here? The administration, जब एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन काम कर रहा है तो उसके ऊपर कंट्रोल किस तरह से एक्सरसाइज किया जा रहा है, हाउ आर कंट्रोल बीइंग एक्सरसाइज्ड ओवर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, एंड डिफरेंट फॉर्म्स ऑफ कंट्रोल। व्हाट आर दोस फॉर्म्स? लेजिस्लेटिव कंट्रोल, एग्जीक्यूटिव कंट्रोल, जुडिशियल कंट्रोल, एज वेल एज सिटीजंस कंट्रोल ओवर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन। दिस इज व्हाट वी स्टडी हियर। क्लियर? Administrative law। Now most of you have attended my polity classes, or you are attending my polity classes। Have we studied about dicey, AV dicey? So the same ideas which we study in polity gets replicated here, because we have studied there about rule of law। So what is rule of law and how it is different from something called as administrative law? Now we in polity we don't study about administrative law, but in administration, in public administration, we do study about it. Okay, we do study about this. Okay. Now look at the remaining topics that are there. Administrative behavior. In an organization, what behaviors become important? Decision making, communication, motivation, morale, leadership. This is basically how administrative or how administration is taken up or how management is taken up. What are the theories related to them? We study this as a part of administrative behavior. Clear? Next, पर्सनल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. देखो, एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में 3 इंपॉर्टेंट चीजें होती हैं. सबसे पहला फैक्टर होता है ह्यूमन फैक्टर. सो हाउ ह्यूमंस आर फंक्शनिंग. सो देयर इज अ कॉन्सेप्ट कॉल्ड एज 3 M's. व्हाट आर दोस? मेन, मनी, मटीरियल. These are the 3 important aspects of any organization. पैसा और लोग. ऑब्वियसली पैसे के बिना ऑर्गेनाइजेशन काम नहीं करता. सो पैसा, लोग और मटीरियल, दैट मीन्स द अदर रिसोर्सेज दैट आर देयर. दिस इज हाउ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन फंक्शंस, है ना. दिस इज हाउ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन फंक्शंस. लुक एट अस. यहां हम तीनों लोगों का एग्जाम्पल है. 3 M's. मेन. अबाउट नो व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट दिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, मेन. तो मेन में कौन हो गए ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में? ऑब्वियसली आई एम हियर. ऑब्वियसली देयर आर पीपल रनिंग द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, दे आर देयर. सो मेन बिकम्स इंपॉर्टेंट. मनी, है ना. मनी इज इंपॉर्टेंट, which means when we talk about the running this organization will have a cost. Running this organization will have a cost. तो वो cost किस चीज से हम टेकअप करते हैं? मनी. एंड देन देर आर रिसोर्सेज. ठीक है, अब ये बिल्डिंग भी तो है. दिस इज अ पार्ट ऑफ रिसोर्सेज. So men, material as well as money. These are the 3 important aspects of every organization, and we study them as a part of public administration. Like personal administration, it is what? Human resource. As we said, men is important. Or if we go in paper 2, what you will see? Civil services. How are people recruited in the organization? How they should be promoted in an organization? All of that is a part of men part, जिसमें हम civil services और साथ ही साथ paper 1 की अगर हम बात करें, so we talk about what? We talk about personnel administration, men part. Second, we talk about money part. तो money part में देखो क्या है? How an organization functions. Financial administration. So we read about what? Monetary and fiscal policy, not in the details that you read about it in economics, but some of the part. Then we also read about public borrowings, budget, what is the process of budget and all of this. ठीक है? So this is what? Look at this, financial administration. Money part, financial administration. In paper 2 also, financial management. So how in India it is taken up? So you see, there is budget, there is finance ministry, there is audit, there is accounting. What is it? It is a part of how we manage money in the organization, है ना. तो मनी पार्ट हो गया. सो मेन एंड मनी पार्ट वी रीड अबाउट इट इन द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, इन दिस इन पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन एज वेल. ठीक है. देन टेक्निक्स ऑफ एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव इंप्रूवमेंट, अभी ये नहीं समझोगे. पब्लिक पॉलिसी, व्हाट इज इट? गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसीज किस तरह से बनाई जाती है? गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसीज किस तरह से बनाई जाती है? व्हाट इज द पॉलिसी साइकिल, है ना. पॉलिसी साइकिल इज देयर. दैट मीन्स इट इज समथिंग विच वर्क्स इन अ सर्कल लाइक दिस. इट वर्क्स लाइक दिस. पॉलिसी is there is something called as policy enactment, implementation, monitoring, evaluation and so on. This is how it works. एक पॉलिसी को सिर्फ बनाना ही काम नहीं होता है. How the policy is being made? When the policy is already made, how it is implemented? When the policy is implemented, then mid-term review करना पड़ता है. Mid-term review of policies, है ना. Any government policy that is there, any government policy, if you don't review the policy, तो क्या होगा? गोल्स हमने सोचे थे कुछ और, हम अचीव कुछ और कर रहे हैं, है ना. देयर इज डाइवर्जन ऑफ गोल्स. हाउ विल वी कम टू नो अबाउट दैट डाइवर्जन? अनटिल लेस वी मॉनिटर इट, है ना. अपने प्रिपरेशन से रिलेट करो इसको. यू हैव अ गोल, गोल ऑफ व्हाट? being able to qualify this service, but you are working towards this goal. But if you don't judge yourself continuously at every, in every maybe 10-15 days, if you don't judge your preparation, तो जो आप अचीव करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, what you are actually achieving, दोनों के बीच में डाइवर्जन है. how will you come to know about this diversion? how will you address the diversion? है ना, ताकि वो वापस से आप एड्रेस करके वापस से जो अचीव करना चाहते हो वो अचीव करो. वो कैसे करोगे? मॉनिटरिंग से. इसीलिए होता है वो क्लास टेस्ट वगैरह, ठीक है. दैट इज अ मॉनिटरिंग पार्ट ऑफ आवर डिस्कशन, ठीक है. तो वो देखो मॉनिटरिंग करेंगे. फिर वंस मॉनिटरिंग इज डन एंड वी हैव कंप्लीटेड द इंप्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ पॉलिसी, वी हैव डन व्हाट? वी हैव कंप्लीटेड द इंप्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ पॉलिसी. अब पॉलिसी इंप्लीमेंट हो चुका है तो उसके कुछ अचीवमेंट्स भी तो होंगे. Some things we would have achieved, but not necessarily we have achieved everything. So there would be some successes and some failures. So what are those successes? What are those failures? Why we succeeded? Why we failed? अगर हम इसे नहीं जानेंगे तो हम अगली पॉलिसी जो बनाएंगे उसे हम चेंज कैसे करेंगे? So when we evaluate a policy, we come to what? We come to a new policy. We modify, we come up with a modified policy. We understand, okay, where we failed and how we need to change that to achieve our goal. ये cyclic तरीके से चलता रहता है. And then comes the theories part, where we actually discuss the theories of what? Theories of policy formulation, how it is formulated. This is your paper 1. देखो अब यहां पर सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट बात है. अब आज से पहले अगर आप किसी को भी जाकर पूछो ना कि व्हाट इज पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, तो दे विल से दिस इट्स अबाउट गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, जो कि सही है, बट दैट इज नॉट द पार्ट ऑफ आवर ऑप्शनल प्रिपरेशन. व्हेन वी प्रिपेयर आवर ऑप्शनल्स, थिंग्स आर डिफरेंट. वी हैव टू रीड अबाउट व्हाट, नॉट जस्ट, वी डोंट हैव टू जस्ट रीड अबाउट जस्ट गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस. वी रीड अबाउट द फंक्शनिंग ऑफ एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, चाहे वो गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हो चाहे वो प्राइवेट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हो, हाउ डज दैट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एक्चुअली फंक्शन? दैट इज समथिंग दैट वी रीड अबाउट हियर इन पेपर 1. एंड इन पेपर 2 इज वेरी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड. इट इज इंडियन एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. इट्स अबाउट व्हाट? इट्स अबाउट इंडियन एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. सो हियर व्हाट वी डू इज that is what we read now here. We read about how administration functions in India. And how do we start this? Obviously, Indian administration is not something that we evolved in 1950. It is something which continued much before that. India has a history of 5,000 years, at least, that we know of. हमारी हिस्ट्री 5,000 साल की है. ये वो हिस्ट्री है जिसको हम जानते हैं. शायद हमारी हिस्ट्री उससे भी पुरानी है, उससे भी पुरानी हमारी हिस्ट्री है. which means that what we are today, even the administrative structure that we see as of today, is not something which has evolved in the last 70-80 years. No, it has evolved in the last 5,000 years. And we do what? We study about that in the very first part, evolution of Indian administration, where we study about obviously Kautilya, we study about Mughal administration, we study about the Britishers and how they influenced the Indian administration. Primarily on what perspectives? देखो, revenue administration, district administration, local self-government. Obviously, all of this is a part of polity. All of this is a part of polity, local self-government. So what we see today, panchayats, municipalities, this was something which had a very, it has a history going back. Even when we read about Kautilya, you'll find that there are some institutions which reflected local bodies as of today. Mughal administration में तो complete hierarchy थी of local bodies. We read about them and we also see how the Britishers influenced it. Clear? So evolution part comes. Then comes what? See, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल, सब कुछ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बारे में। अब देखो, salient features and values, value premise of what? Philosophical and constitutional framework. So what we have studied as a part of constitution, the values of our Indian constitution mentioned in the preamble, justice, equality, etc. We study them here. We study about constitutionalism. Do you know what's constitutionalism? ये term जानते हो? Constitutionalism. Yes? No. Constitution and constitutionalism is two different things. Constitutionalism is about the not just the provisions of the constitution but the checks that are imposed on the government. A concept मैंने discuss किया in polity, you must have heard about limited government. The mechanization of limited government, how it works is what the term constitutionalism means. We read about it. We read about the political culture of India, bureaucracy and democracy, bureaucracy and development, whether bureaucracy contributes to development or whether it is a problem in development, है ना? अपने बारे में पढ़ते हो, क्या करने वाले हो, आगे जाके अच्छा ब्यूरोक्रेट बनोगे या बुरा, वो पढ़ते हैं हम. Then what we do? Public sector undertakings. Not a very important part, but yes, you do get one question at least from this very topic. In India, public sector undertakings, 1950s, comparing that to as of today. So what was there in the 1950s and if you compare it that of today, there is a difference. 1950s mein, when the first 5-year plan was established, the second 5-year plan, that talked about establishment of heavy industries. Today we are talking about what? Today we are talking about, privatizing of the industries. So the public sectors that are there, any public sector undertaking which is loss making, Air India, we have privatized it. BSNL, we are thinking about privatizing it. So that part of our discussion we study here. Union government and administration. Complete polity with only with some difference. What is the difference? See this. This part is the difference. Here, we do not just read about judiciary, executive, parliament and all of that. We do read about it, but we also read about some administrative bodies. Because it's not just union government, it's also administration. So we also read about administrative bodies here. We add to our discussion how PMO functions, how the central secretariat functions, and all of this. So these organizations, how they function, we add that to our discussion. Otherwise, it's polity. Similarly, planning. How is planning taken up in India and how it has been taken up in India? So if you look at planning in India, now it's done by Niti Aayog. But previously it was not done by Niti Aayog. It was also done by which organization? Planning Commission. So we changed that. तो हमने क्यों change किया? What was wrong with Planning Commission? Exactly. So we decentralized it. We came up with Niti Aayog. How does Niti Aayog function? What is the structure? Not just the structure, but how it is functioning. Along with it, we also discuss about a body called as State Planning Boards. जो आपने नहीं सुना होगा या आपने बहुत कम सुना होगा. State Planning Board is what? The state level body which is responsible for state planning. We discuss about them. And then there is also something called as the term indicative planning. So there is two terms, imperative planning and indicative planning. Imperative planning हम कब करते थे? 1950 से लेकर 1991 तक. Imperative planning. Everything was planned by the government. Each and everything was done by the government. 1991 में क्या हुआ? LPG adopt कर लिया. Now private sector is responsible for most of the things. Indicative planning. We read about that. What is the difference? ये है planning. So the whole planning structure, how does it work in India? We read about that part. State government and administration. Again, governor, chief minister, etc. What is the difference? Because it's not just state government, it is also administration. So we read here about the office of chief secretary, which is the head administrator of the whole of the state, chief secretary. Along with that, we also read about the state secretariat. Yaad hai? Yesterday I talked about secretariats. So we did discuss secretariats and directorates. So the organization secretariat is responsible for policy making. Directorates are responsible for policy implementation. That is what we read here. आगे देखो, डिस्ट्रिक्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, यही है वो डिस्ट्रिक्ट कलेक्टर वाला ऑफिस. यहां पे हम पढ़ते हैं वो. एंड दिस इज द ओनली टॉपिक दैट वी रीड अबाउट द ऑफिस ऑफ डिस्ट्रिक्ट कलेक्टर. एंड यू नो, there are so many people who feel that this is the whole of public administration. This is not. This is just one topic. We read about district administration here, and we obviously talk about the office of district collector. But the office of district collector, you can see changing role. Why are we talking about changing role? Because the office of district collector was established in India in 1772. 1772, which means it's been now 250 years since the office of district collector is functioning. So when it was established, and today, in this period, how it has undergone a change. What are the changes that happened post independence? What was the reasons for those changes? We study about that. And then we also talk about what? We also talk about other issues of district administration. Democratic decentralization. Democratic decentralization is what? Creation of local bodies like the panchayats as well as municipalities. We talk about them here. Similarly, again, that is also a part of your polity. Civil service, I have already told you. ठीक है. Financial management, I have already told you. Administrative reforms since independence. What are the reforms measures? Like GST. That's an example of reform. Prime Minister has talked about GST reforms. No, the government is going to come up with by Diwali, which means in the month of October. What does that mean? It means that will be a part of your syllabus. It is going to be asked. So जो reform measures है, committee, commissions, etc., we study about them also. Okay. Then rural development. So it is, you can see here we study about agencies, the 73rd constitutional amendment. So we study about rural development, how it was taken up. So in this case, we study about organizations like, you must have heard about policies like IRDA, Integrated Rural Development Agency. Then there is something called as DRDA, District Rural Development Agencies, when it was formed, why it was formed, all these things. We also study about what? 73rd Constitutional Amendment, that is formation of panchayats and the working of panchayats. Similarly, we do that with also urban administration or urban local government. So we read about obviously the 74th Constitutional Amendment, but 74th Constitutional Amendment is not the only thing that we read about. We also read about some other issues, like there is a concept here, see this, new localism, है ना? हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर क्या कह रहे हैं? आत्मनिर्भर भारत. He talks about आत्मनिर्भर भारत. He says since 2020, that is since the coming up of COVID itself, he has talked about what? Make in India. And you should do what? You should focus on buying Indian products. है ना? Indian products. अभी भी वो यही कह रहे हैं कि what you should be doing is you should be buying Indian products. What is this? Localism, the concept of localism. Localism is a contradictory idea to LPG. Liberalization, privatization and globalization. Localism is something else. So today, now we live in this era of a demand of localism. So what is localism? Is it contradictory to LPG? It is supplementary to LPG. There are scholars, some of whom believe in this idea of localism. Yes, localism can succeed. Some of the scholars, they question this idea. They say, no, globalization is what is going to succeed, not localism. How that works, we read about that here. We read about organization, development dynamics in urban government. Like you must see what is happening. Monsoon season आता है India में. Look at the intensity of disasters today. Look at intensity of disasters as of today. This is not what used to happen just going back maybe 10 years. Suddenly ऐसा क्या हो गया है? Unsustainable development, है ना? Unsustainable development. गुड़गांव में एक सोसाइटी है, DLF कमेलियाज, आपने बहुत सुना होगा। 100 करोड़ रुपए का फ्लैट बिकता है वहां पर, ठीक है? 100 करोड़ रुपए का फ्लैट बिकता है वहां पर। 100 करोड़ रुपए का फ्लैट तो खरीद लिया आपने, बाहर निकलोगे इतना पानी रहता है उसमें। हाँ, when the monsoon comes like this time, if right now, because last 2-3 days there has been there has been too much rain in that part, so you know there what you will find is that as soon as you get out of this very society, ठीक है, सोसाइटी में सब कुछ बहुत बढ़िया है, सोसाइटी से बाहर निकलोगे वहां पर इतना पानी है, बाहर बिल्कुल पानी इतना जमा हुआ है। Now this is basically what urban development problems are. The kind of development that is being taken up, that is not sustainable. No, that is not sustainable. If you look at metropolitan areas like Delhi, कूड़े का पहाड़ है ना? कूड़े का पहाड़ है, उस पे भी पॉलिटिक्स हो रहा है, कौन इसको खत्म करेगा? That is the idea that is being discussed. What is it? What is it? Lack of sustainable development. See, if you are, obviously, if the population, see, population of Delhi is this much. Population of Delhi is estimated to be around 3 to 4 crores. 3 to 4 crores. It is said that the amount of urban waste that is generated and the amount of urban waste which can be disposed of, match hi nahi hai. There is no match there. And because of that, what has happened? Because of that, these issues have come up. Because of this, these issues have come up. You have bought a vehicle in Delhi which costs 50 lakh rupees. बहुत बढ़िया, चलाओगे कहाँ? कहाँ चलाओगे? थोड़ा घर से बाहर निकलोगे, जाम ही मिलेगा, तो चला कहाँ रहे हो फिर, है ना? So, no, you will find we all buy vehicles, you know, when we live in metropolitan areas. I know बहुत मोटिवेशन के साथ चलो गाड़ी खरीदते हैं. After that what happens, you know? After that, in metropolitan areas you don't drive it. फिर ये सोचते हैं अरे कौन चलाएगा यार, चलो कैब करके चले जाते हैं. You have bought a vehicle but you are not using it. What is it? There is an issue related to what? Urban planning and development. Urban planning and development. What are those problems? We discuss about it in this very issue. Okay, we discuss about those problems. We talk about sanity. There is something called, you must have heard about, smart city program. What is this concept of smart city? And how smart city has the capability of ensuring these problems are solved. We discuss that. It's about administration. So how administration is to be taken up there. Okay, we discuss those issues as well. Law and order, obviously, police and working of police. But we do not just talk about police here. See, as I said, these are what? As I told you, there is also a topic in your general studies paper 3, internal security. Issues like terrorism, insurgency, etc. All of it is a part of it that overlaps here. But we do not just study about problems here. We also study about those commissions which have suggested reforms. Do you know that in India, we follow the Indian Police Act of 1861. 1861. मतलब सोचो, एक लॉ जो 1861 में बना, वो आज कैसे रेलेवेंट हो सकता है? How can it be relevant after now almost 150-60 years? The law which was enacted then, how can it be relevant today? What are the problems there? What are the reforms required? What are the Supreme Court's directions in order to address these reforms? We study about that in the law and order part. Okay? Significant issues. This is the last topic. Significant issues. What are those? Values. It overlaps with your GS paper 4. Disaster management overlaps with your GS paper 3. Then we also talk about National Human Rights Commission, overlaps with your GS paper 2. Citizen and administration interface, corruption, overlaps with both GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 4. These are significant issues. What are the problems of coalition regime? So in coalition government, how administration, no, what are the problems that administration faces when there is a coalition government formed? We read about that. Okay. This is basically what the syllabus here is. Now, when you know about the syllabus, देखो, ठीक है, now you have an overview of the syllabus. Obviously, you don't know about it. You have an overview of it. But what exactly is the requirement here? Now try and understand this. This is one of the most significant parts of our discussion for today. देखो, public administration requires first conceptual clarity. Rote memory नहीं चलेगा in this optional. If you do not have the capability to understand things, ठीक है, मैंने बोला था ना, I will tell you what is the requirement of public administration as an optional, when you can go for this optional. So the very first thing is conceptual clarity. If you do not have the capability to understand things well, analyze things well, this is not your optional. This is not your optional. I am very clear about it. अगर चीजों को, अगर आपको, if you know, you see, you know yourself, you know about your capabilities. So if you know that you have the capability to understand things, बचपन से लेकर आज तक चीजों को समझते ज्यादा बेहतर हो, चाहे याद करने की कैपेबिलिटी हो या ना हो, बट यू हैव द कैपेबिलिटी टू डू व्हाट, यू हैव द कैपेबिलिटी टू understand things well, analyze things well. This is your optional. This is your optional. Because 90% of the questions that you will get in public administration requires conceptual clarity. It requires conceptual clarity. So if you have good understanding, this is your optional. But if you primarily focus on memorizing things, you have the capability to learn, but not necessarily the same capability to understand. This is not your optional. This is not your optional. फिर आप कोई ऐसा ऑप्शनल ले सकते हो जहां पर स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चंस आते हैं, things can be learnt and accordingly may be written. That would work, but not in public administration. Public administration requires absolute crystal concepts clear, because when that's there, what happens is you are able to do what? Satisfy the second condition. What is that? You have the capability to correlate things. ये correlation जो है ना, this is not something which comes without conceptual clarity. If I am writing, see, we have just talked about the syllabus. If I am writing, suppose, urban local government, about urban local government, I cannot relate a concept that I've studied in development dynamics to this urban local government or urban development. If I cannot correlate that, I am not going to get marks. I am not going to get marks. So, मुझे तो ऐसा लगेगा कि मैंने आंसर तो बहुत लिखा है और मैं अपनी तरफ से मुझे लगेगा मैं बहुत अच्छा लिख कर आया, लेकिन जब मार्क्स आएंगे तो एवरेज मार्किंग होगा. So you will find that you are scoring 230, 240 out of 500. But you are unable to go beyond that. That is, हमें चाहिए 275. And we need 275 plus, depending upon that year's marking. We need at least 275, 275 plus. So this 30, 40 marks that you are missing, why has this happened? मैंने क्या कहा? In total, you are writing 38 questions. In total, you are writing 38 questions. What will be the difference? For someone who conceptually understands things well and he has written those concepts there, every question, almost every question, he is likely to get 1 or 2 marks extra in comparison to others who have just written a straightforward question. तो क्या होगा? जिसने स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चन लिखा उसको 220 230 आ रहा है, और जिन्होंने conceptually if they have understood things they are likely to score 40 marks, somewhere around 40 marks additional to that. What will that be? 260 270 275. This is the difference, because without your capability to correlate things, you are not going to write, no, you are not going to score very well in public administration. So you require an exceptional एबिलिटी टू कोरिलेट, और वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ कंसेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी से ही आता है. आपके दिमाग में कुछ इस तरह से चीजें चलनी चाहिए जब आप एक टॉपिक पढ़ रहे हो ना. सो व्हेन obviously it will not come in first reading, it comes after 2 or 3 readings. So once things are over, you have revised once, now you are in a state where you read a question. As soon as you read a question, automatically the question talks about personal administration, but you are able to relate theories given by Taylor, or you are able to relate theories maybe given by some other thinker to that very topic. This is what is the requirement here. This is what is the requirement. This is the correlation that is there. And this is very important for public administration. Answer writing. देखो, in public administration, what happens is that most of the questions that are asked, they are statement based questions. Statement based questions. They are what? They are statement based questions. Now, statement based question means what? First, you have to interpret the statement. Second, you have to interpret the statement correctly, and then you have to write it. So when there is a statement based question, the answer writing that is required is comparatively, you have to be comparatively better than just writing simple answers. I'm not saying that simple questions are not asked. Simple questions are also asked, and there is a trend today to ask simple questions. In the last, if you go back to the year 2013, near about 2012, 13, 14, the questions समझ में ही नहीं आता था. आजकल वैसा नहीं है. Things are very simple. Simple questions are asked, but some questions are statement based also. Now, in that case, you have to have the capability to correctly interpret the statements, और उसको develop करने के लिए answer writing जरूरी है. That means to develop this capability to address this statement based questions, you should have what? You should have the knack of reading questions and interpreting them properly, है ना? Most of the times this is one difficulty that aspirants face. Specifically, जितने भी बच्चे अभी भी पढ़ रहे हैं मेरे से public administration, they tend to tell me this, that sir, most of the times what we face, the problem that we face is statement based questions. What happens is we are not able to interpret that properly. और मैं उनको यही बताता हूँ कि things do not happen in one day. So if after every topic that I take a PYQ session. मतलब हर टॉपिक मैंने अगर इंट्रोडक्शन टॉपिक कंप्लीट किया तो मैं लास्ट 4 या 5 साल के PYQs को क्लास में ही डिस्कस करता हूँ, वेर आई टेल देम हाउ टू स्ट्रक्चर क्वेश्चंस एटसेट्रा. तो उनका कहना रहता है कि सर जब आप बताते हैं तो हमें समझ में आ जाता है, लेकिन जब हम अपने से कोशिश करते हैं तो नहीं समझ में आ पाता है कि एज टू व्हाट शुड बी रिटन. तो वो होगा, बट दैट इज समथिंग विच इज कंप्लीटली द गेम ऑफ प्रैक्टिस. The more you read questions, the better you start understanding it. This is also one of the important requirements that are there. If you can fulfill these things, if you know that yes, comparatively your strong point is understanding and not necessarily just learning. If you know that with better understanding you do develop the capability to correlate things, and you are ready to focus on answer writing, then only this is your optional. Otherwise, public administration is not your optional then. then you should be not looking at this, you should be looking at some other optional. But for those who have this capability, for those who have this knack, if you practice, believe me, you are very, you will always find it easy to score well in public administration. Like it was the case for me, though I never thought of, no, while I was choosing my optional, but this was the case for me. When I used to write my mains examination, public administration was never my concern. ठीक है, तो जिस दिन पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का पेपर भी होता था, मैं उस दिन आराम से सोता था, because I knew that I'm going to write answers well there, because it was understanding based and my concepts were quite clear when it came to this very optional. So I used to score on the higher side. And because of this idea, because I was not very good at mugging up things, I was no I but I was very good at understanding things. So no, and I had that capability that I knew that if I read things one time or twice, then I analyze it to a certain extent where I have the capability to correlate. So because of these two ideas, I used to score well in public administration. That is the reason why I have specifically mentioned this for you also. For those who have these two capability, देखो ये तो, this is something that you develop. This is something that even in the class, if you are there in class, believe me, that is something which you will develop. By the time we end our discussion, the number of classes that I dedicate and the number of questions that I discuss in the class, if you are attentive enough, ये हो जाता है. लेकिन ये दो चीजें मैं ऑटोमेटिकली नहीं ला सकता हूँ. ये चीजें जो है, ये अभी तक आपको जिस तरह से पढ़ाया गया है, जिस तरह से आपको ट्रेन किया गया है, उस चीज को मैं 4 महीने में बदल नहीं सकता हूँ. आई कैन नॉट ऑल्टर इट इन 4-5 months. दैट इज द रीजन वाई आई हैव स्पेसिफिकली टोल्ड यू, इफ दिस इज नॉट योर स्ट्रॉन्ग पॉइंट, दिस इज नॉट योर ऑप्शनल. एटलीस्ट दैट इज माई ओपिनियन. ठीक है, दिस इज बेसिकली वॉट द ऑप्शनल इज अबाउट. ठीक है, अब मुझे ये बताओ, इफ यू हैव एनी क्वेश्चंस यू कैन आस्क मी द. हाँ, no, the theories part, बैठ जाओ. In the theories part that is there, whatever theories are there, they are very specific to public administration only. There is no overlap with that in your general studies. The overlap that is there is of paper 2 and some aspects of paper 1, but not the theory and that part. That does not overlap. ठीक है? Yes. Anyone else? Any other questions that you have? Any other questions? हाँ. All India services bring efficiency to administration in India. Clear? Now you know what's All India services. All India services are in India, they are IAS as well as IPS and obviously forest services. These are the 3 All India services. Now, if you know about All India services, if you know about Article 312 of the Indian Constitution, which is how All India services are basically formed, even if you know about other provisions like Article 310, Article 311, all of these provisions you know, but you will not be able to answer this question. You will not be able to answer this question because All India services that are there, how does it bring about efficiency to Indian administration? For this, you will have to do what? You will have to correlate All India services to something called as principles of administration which was given by a scholar like Henry Fayol. So he talked about things like division of work. He talked about things like unity of command. वो अभी आप नहीं समझ पाओगे because unless I talk about them. So, and when you know that, you can correlate it to Fayol and you can talk about how it brings about efficiency. ठीक है? And there are some other things also that you can add. But if you don't add this, if you don't write about the principles of administration here, then you will not be able to appropriately answer this question. That is what correlation is. Because see, if we talk about, now if we are talking about all India services are a part of what aspect of our discussion? This. Civil servants, what are the constitutional position? What is the structure? So all India services, central services, and obviously how they are recruited, etc. This is the basic, this part is there. This is where we are going to study all India services. But what am I correlating it to? I am correlating it to this part, classical theory. This is the correlation that is required. Or ye only and only with understanding it comes, not otherwise. Only and only with understanding. That is the reason why I said without correlation, not possible. If we talk about, suppose, India's bureaucratic structure and inefficiencies that are there, you have to relate that. You can see here Weber's bureaucratic model. You will find that जो India में bureaucratic structure है ना, that actually is identical to what Weber has to say. तो Max Weber ने जो बोला था वही structure है, same structure is there. But when you are writing about it in paper 2, public administration paper 2, you will have to mention Weber. If you don't mention Weber, you are not likely to score marks. Average marking होगा, not, you are not going to score in the top 10%. है ना? That is what is required. It requires conceptual understanding. ठीक है? Any other questions? हाँ, just a moment. Yes, for optional also you will have to follow the same current affairs. It is not different. ठीक है? But yes, some aspects of current affairs will be more relevant for public administration than any other optional. Like when you are reading about government policies and programs, ठीक है? तो जब आप GS में पढ़ते हो तो आप क्या पढ़ते हो? What are the different provisions related to it? लेकिन जब आप पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में पढ़ोगे तो आप ये भी पढ़ोगे कि एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव स्ट्रक्चर क्या रिक्वायर्ड है टू इंप्लीमेंट इट. अगर मान लो कोई पॉलिसी है जिसे 4-5 साल हो चुका है एंड दैट हैज बीन इंप्लीमेंटेड फॉर 5 years एंड न्यूज़पेपर में कोई आर्टिकल आता है रिलेटेड टू द अचीवमेंट्स ऑफ दैट पॉलिसी, है ना, कि वो पॉलिसी पिछले 5 साल में किस तरह से उन्होंने काम किया है, तो वो चीज हमारे एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में ज्यादा रेलेवेंट हो जाता है देन इन जनरल स्टडीज. थोड़ा डायमेंशंस चेंज करने पड़ते हैं बट मोस्ट ऑफ द थिंग्स आर एब्सोल्युटली द सेम, एटलीस्ट करंट अफेयर्स पार्ट. Direct, yes, direct question would be, just a moment. This is a direct question. It talks about parliamentary procedures and how control is exercised over administration through parliamentary procedures. What is required here is just the knowledge of parliamentary procedures, how it makes laws, what are the debates, discussions happen, what is comptroller and auditor general's role. If you know about that, you can write this answer. There is a difference. Okay? So, mostly administrative and management related questions. Yes, laws would be asked if they are those laws which are related to administration, like RTI, right to information, that can be asked as a question. Similarly, if there are, if there is a law which the government has come up with, suppose Human Rights Commission, so there is a law related to Human Rights Commission that was passed in the 1990s, early 1990s, 1992, I think. So that can be asked. But only those which are related to administration, not all kinds of laws. Okay? हाँ. हाँ. See, diagrammatic representation works provided it is self-explanatory. Diagram should always be self-explanatory. If I'm drawing a diagram and then I have to explain to that diagram also to the examiner, so you are wasting just space and you are wasting words. But if I draw a diagram which as soon as I see the diagram, the examiner understands, okay, what this diagram is about. That kind of diagram is appreciated, provided it is self-explanatory, not otherwise. Okay? Okay. So this is where we are going to end our discussion. If you want to ask me some questions personally also, I'm here for 10-15 minutes. You can do that. Okay? That's it for today. Thank you.